Howdy, Non here at Information Highwayman, and you are watching another Ace of Spades Friday website review. Today you are going to learn about entry pages and other abominable mistakes that evoke strongly negative first reactions. And I apologize in advance to Dan, whose site this is, www.ilikeyourart.com. Obviously that's not the sort of thing that you want to see when you first start watching one of these reviews. That kind of title suggests that it's going to be a little bit negative and critical. And it is, but I would also like to thank you for offering your site which illustrates a number of principles which are very important for websites in general, and which are done wrong to varying degrees by a lot of websites out there, especially ones which have been put together by people who haven't got the budget for a professional designer, or who have unfortunately hired one of the many complete bogus designers out there who do not know what they're doing. So this should be fairly helpful and informative to you. As usual, we're going to be looking at the photo conversion rate checklist, which stands for first reaction, orientation, desirability, and offers. Not forgetting Odo, which is where the majority of the important stuff lies. All the elements which cover orientation, desirability, and offers are the ones which you want to get the most attention to, using contrast and iPath. But today, we're going to be looking at first reaction. In particular, how does the site make me feel? Alright. If you're anything like me, the first thing you thought was, ugh. And the reason you thought that is, well, there are quite a few reasons. First of all, there's the banner. Who can not like the old banner, eh? That thing there. Yeah. It is, to say that it looks 90s would be a fairly apt, if understated way of putting it. One of the problems that it has is that it's using what you might call a significant excess of graphical effects. And not only are there too many graphical effects, but they're rather cheap looking graphical effects. So the sorts of things that people who first get hold of Photoshop when they're 13 years old, like I was, go into Photoshop and they create some kind of text that they want to put some effects on to make it look cool. And then they create a background and they put effects on that, and they put more effects on the text, and they end up with basically what you're looking at here. So you've got your strange texture, and you've got your heavy bevel, and you've got your background with its gradient and its other weird texture, and you've got your overlaid flowers and various leaves and things. And then to top it all off, let's not forget the gradient above and below, going from that hideous pink to the deep red on the other side. Okay. So that doesn't exactly make you joyful to look at to begin with. You're thinking, okay, this is cheap, this is kind of not good. This guy probably made this in his spare time, or got his 12-year-old niece to do it. Okay, could be a nephew. I'm not picking on nieces in particular. Then you'll see, you'll love the prints and you'll love the prices, and that headline doesn't do a huge amount. More to the point, the color of the headline when you mouse over it isn't particularly attractive, and it's just white to begin with. It stands out pretty well, and it looks alright. There's nothing terribly wrong with it, but it doesn't say anything very interesting. I'll get into that a little bit more later, because that's really in the desirability element. Moving further down the page, you've got this slider carousel element, which contains a number of different artwork and text which is being scrolled across the page so that you can, well, scrolled is the wrong word, but you know what I mean, faded across the page so that you can see various things. And usually these look great, but in this particular case, you've got this very wide selection of primary colors against the blue, and I use wide selection ironically there. And you've also got no kind of border whatsoever, and borders usually, unless you've designed your site to fit a carousel like this in, and you've designed your colors very carefully, and you've chosen the colors for the carousel very carefully, a border is really important because it helps to separate colors which may conflict with each other. It reminds me of when I was a kid, my dad used to be really into heraldry, and I got quite into it for a short while as well. When you're designing a thing like a shield, for example, like they used in medieval times, you had very specific rules with regards to the kinds of colours that you could put over each other, and those weren't there because the medieval people were weird and liked to make up rules. They were there because if you didn't obey the rules, it looked really retarded, and people thought your king was an idiot. So, the same thing here, you don't want to have a thing like a red against blue. That usually looks bad. You want to have what medieval sort of called metals against, was it colours? Might have been colours. So metals are things like gold and silver, which is usually equated to a sort of orange or usually a yellow and a white. And you want to have those sitting against your colours instead. Additionally, remember that you don't want to have text superimposed over textures or superimposed over images. The text here varies between being readable and not. And it is on the right hand side, which is good because it means that your eye moves in the correct path. So that's all that needs to be said here. For the most part, this carousel is pretty bad. Then we scroll down and we say click to enter. Okay, first of all, we haven't been told why we should click to enter. But second of all, well, click to enter is just like the last thing you should ever put on your website. This isn't actually an entry page. It's not like what you might call a splash page where all you see is like some kind of retarded flash animation or some kind of really fancy image and you're told to click so that you can go to the actual website. I mean, what is the point of that? That is... It's basically suicide if you want to design a site that people are going to look at. I saw a recent study by Jacob Nielsen, who is a usability expert. If you know anything about usability, you will have heard of him. And if you don't know anything about usability and you want to, you look him up. Jacob Nielsen, his name is. And he did a study he referenced a study which showed that even if you have a web page like this, which has plenty of other navigation elements on it and plenty of text on it and various things that you would not associate with an entry page, simply having this click to enter thing going on so that you kind of get this impression of an entry page tends to make everything else disappear for your users, and the only thing that seems to be important to them is the fact that this looks like an entry page now, and they hate it and they go away. If you change that to something like click to see available artwork so that this just looked like a home page, that would almost certainly improve your click-through rate by about 50% straight away. I'd also suggest that you put the text, this text here, that needs to kind of go above the call to action. Traditionally, that's where you put text. And if you're gonna make a good first impression, and again this is getting more into desirability, but I'll cover it here anyway. It says briefly, iLikeYourArt.com. Yeah. First of all, you've got the I lowercase and you've got the UR uppercase, which looks like text speak. And believe it or not, if you're not about 13, text speak actually makes you want to cry. So I would suggest that you just call it I like your art. I mean, the URL here is actually I like your art, not I like your art. I would suggest that you just write that out normally. Is a place to view, appreciate, and purchase high-quality, affordable, contemporary art prints with a wide range of artistic styles from an select group of artists. Okay, yeah, I've just had my opinion, my initial impression reinforced about this site. It's not only amateur, but it's designed by someone who doesn't know the basics of English. So my general sense is that I don't actually want to click to enter. Like, what is the point of clicking to enter? There's nothing here that I actually want, because even if I see something that I like in this carousel, for example, maybe I like some of these prints, I just don't feel happy giving my credit card information away online to a site like this. Like, that just seems like crazy talk. Alright, so that's first reaction. Orientation, am I in the right place? Well, you'll love the prints and you'll love the prices, does tell me a little bit. It tells me that prints are available and that I'll have to pay for them. And the text down the bottom, which I just talked about, this text here, yeah, that tells me a bit as well, but you want to move that up. That's essentially your lead or maybe your tagline. You need to have that featured far higher up. Other than that, the navigation if you spot it, is alright. It tells you about feature prints and you can browse and so on. So that gives you a little bit of extra information, but it's mostly the briefly I like your art. .com is a place to view, appreciate, and purchase high-quality, affordable, contemporary art prints, blah blah blah. That is essentially what's telling your user where they are, and that's what you need to focus on getting higher up on the page. Desirability. I think I've kind of covered desirability for the most part. Do I gain more than I'll invest? Well, no, I don't. Even if I like the prints, I'm so concerned about the look of this site and the fact that it doesn't appear to have been designed by anyone who has the faintest idea what they're doing, that I'm not comfortable even going in, let alone it just hurts my eyes to go in, let alone actually giving away like confidential information like my credit card information and my location and so on. I don't really want to do that. And finally, offers. Do my goals match the available options? Again, I've talked about how click to enter is not a good offer. In fact, it's a terrible, terrible offer. It's probably the worst offer you could ever give someone because of the fact that it makes your site look like an entry page instead of just a normal homepage. So changing that to something a bit more sensible, like click to see the prints, or click here to see feature prints, or click here to see print specials, something like that would be a lot more sensible. Okay, so I've been very critical, and I do hope that I haven't hurt too many feelings. Takeaways for you. Even if your website doesn't look like this, there are websites still on the internet that have entry pages, and there are websites that have kind of what look like entry pages. So really avoid anything that looks like an entry page, anything that could make your website look like that. Users just despise them. Get rid of it. Use heraldry rules for colors and borders is takeaway number 2. And I leave that in your very, no doubt, capable hands to research further. You don't have to research heraldry. I would just look up some basic rules of color usage. Number 3 is stick to 4 basic colors, not garish ones. Part of the problem with this site is that it uses a lot of garish colors, and I have seen that on other sites as well. You want to make sure that you are using colors not that look like mud, but colors that are subdued enough to look professional while being bright enough to be engaging. And it can be a tricky thing to do, and it can be difficult to find that perfect balance. So it's definitely worth looking up how good designers do this, and look up articles on color theory and so on, and find what you need. Stick to 4 basic colors. You don't have to have 4. You could have 2 or 3. A lot of sites do very well just being monochrome. But once you get more than about 4 colors, and obviously variants thereof, like you can go slightly darker and slightly lighter depending on where they fall. Sometimes that's necessary. You can adjust that by eye. But once you get more than about 4 basic colors, it starts to get very busy, and you start to get very inconsistent, and it just looks messy and unpleasant. And of course, avoid cheap, corny graphical effects that can be achieved by downloading the GIMP and playing around for 30 minutes. Even if you don't know what you're doing, playing around for a couple of minutes if you do. Avoid anything that you think that your 13-year-old niece or nephew would do upon first exposure to Photoshop, for example. Alright. Email me with comments, questions, and I'm expecting hate mail this time. Or to get your site reviewed for free, which is normally a $99 value. And of course, if you do want to get your site reviewed, you'll need to sign up for the Ace of Spades, which is free straight shooting marketing tips in your email inbox, and you can do that at informationhireman.com/ace. Until next time, I am Non, and thank you for watching.